Hey everyone, welcome to the show.
Hello, how are you, Kat?
I'm good. How about you?
I am amazing and giddy and super excited.
I'm excited too. So today we have a guest on that we actually have had on before.
Yeah.
So he
was our first
He was
guest.
our very first guest.
Aww.
And that is Mr. Nicholas Bowman-Scargill of Fears Watches. Nick, how are you?
I'm good, thank you. I'm good. I'm very good. And I love your pronunciation of my name. It's perfect.
Oh, was that
was it
okay?
right?
I was hoping that I pronounced everything right.
Yeah, no, absolutely. That was, spot on.
Perfect. One thing that we actually got right, because usually we just butcher everything that we try to say that's not American.
Yeah, basically. And then we follow it up with we're sorry, y'all.
We're sorry, y'all.
Our bad.
Have you seen there are actually YouTube videos explaining to people how to pronounce different luxury brands and watch brands as well?
We look these YouTube videos up before we record some of our podcasts.
And we still get them
And
wrong.
we still get it wrong.
Somehow.
Now, I always think at the end of the day, like, if you want to pronounce it one way, pronounce it how you want to, right? You know.
Like I'm just gonna say AP and JLC.
I feel like you almost sound more pretentious if you don't have that sort of accent and you try to have that sort of accent when you're saying it. Right? Like,
Right,
it
that's
seems
it.
very pretentious.
I listened to a YouTube video the other day, and I won't say who it is. I'll save them the embarrassment. And they were just talking normally, and then every time they said a particular brand, they would really ramp it up, like to make it sound so fancy and pretentious. And I was thinking, oh, come on, just call it AP. It doesn't need all those extra syllables shoved in for no reason. No, it does make me smile. It really does.
Yeah, there's certain words that I just know I am not gonna get out right, no matter how hard I try to say them. I'll go with the abbreviated version.
You know, that is actually one of the reasons why Rolex is called Rolex. So Rolex is obviously was the name chosen by Hans Willdorf. And there's this document, I've seen a copy of it, and it basically lists why he called it Rolex and not some other name. Because he tried loads of different names, but he settled on Rolex. And the sort of myth that he used to tell everyone was that he was riding on an omnibus down Piccadilly in London and a fairy whispered the word into his ear and he decided thereafter to use the name.
I've heard something like that.
Right. There is then this document from, I think, the 20s or the 30s, the lawyers must have said, no, we need like a reason why you came up with it. And it's this list of why he chose Rolex. And two things stuck in my mind. One was, you want a name that has 5 letters because it looks beautifully balanced on the dial. And actually, I think that's true. You look at sort of Omega, Rolex, it's got a nice, or Fears even. It's got a nice balance on the dial. But the other reason is that Rolex is easy to pronounce in any language. And actually, yes, accents will change how it sounds. But you look at it, people know how to pronounce it, right? It's not an unusual, you look at, Oddmars Piguet and you look at Piguet and it's just, for a dyslexic like me, it's an awful word to try and pronounce. But for, other people, you're just like, what, how on earth do you pronounce it? Whereas Rolex is Rolex.
Yeah, JLC will always be JLC to me, just so we can clarify. I will never try.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, they changed how it was pronounced in the UK. So in the UK, we have I don't know if it's still going. It might have gone into administration, but there's this fashion brand, old heritage fashion brand called Jaeger, and it's pronounced the same, I think. And everyone would just, Jaeger. And I've always called JLC Jaeger. It's just Jaeger. And I then heard one day that there was a new marketing person in the UK and they were insisting everyone called it Jaeger Le Couture.
Oh my gosh.
And it's just hilarious. You get any watch journalist drunk enough and they will all just start being like, ooh, Jaeger. It's Jaeger. Everyone calls it Jaeger.
Yeah.
JLC. That's where I'm at. That would be an apology of epic proportions if I attempted that.
But no, there should be some sort of, while everyone's in lockdown, we should do some amusing video or something of, showing up different brand names going.
Southerners pronounce.
And this is how the English try and, butcher a French or a Swiss name and,
That would be hilarious.
We're just going to get somebody from every region of the US and the UK and all over the world and just pronounce different watch brands.
I think, well, you know what? I think it's a more true to people's way of doing it than Rick's calling up the brand themselves and getting them to answer it. But
and then hanging up on them.
I know.
Doesn't even say wrong number.
I know. So, poor people.
Poor people. Oh man. So yeah, I think we just wanted to catch up a little bit with everything kind of going on. And you were, like we said, you were our very first interview. So for anybody who's not familiar with Fears Watches, of course they can check out episode 20 of the podcast. But if you want to give just a quick recap of who you are and about Fears, and then we'll just kind of chat for a while.
Absolutely. So yes, I'm the 4th managing director of the Fears watch company. Fears is one of Britain's oldest watch companies, founded 174 years ago in the western city of Bristol. And it was started by a chap called Edwin Fear, hence the name Fears. And it ran through 3 generations of the Fear family until it closed in 1976. So it actually ran for 130 years before closing. And then I had the honor of restarting it in 2016, so 4 years ago. And my connection to Fears is that Edwin Fear was my great-great-great-grandfather. So I'm 6th generation Fear, but because of those 40 years where the business closed and we skipped 2 generations, that's why I'm 6th generation Fear, but 4th managing director, because there've only been 3 before me, which were all my ancestors.
Very cool.
So yeah, that's our sort of slightly strange history, but very long history. And actually, with everything that's going on at the moment, I remember the very first day where I was, suddenly realizing we're going to have to close the offices and the showroom, and everything was beginning to change. There was a moment where I just kind of stopped as I was sort of mid-emptying the watches out of the showroom. And I thought, actually, Fears went through the First and the Second World War. It survived 2 previous sort of unprecedented times where everything changed. And there was that moment where you think, I really hoped I'd never have to go through something like this, which the 2nd and 3rd managing director did. But here we are today and, trying to manage that. But we're still doing what we were doing last year and the year before. We're still building our watches in the UK. We make very few watches a year, but we make them in the sort of old-fashioned way. We source all of our components across Europe. They're all made bespoke for us to our designs, and then we assemble just a few hundred watches a year. So everything is sort of hand-finished, hand-built, and I always say to people, the great thing of selling watches online is actually they are just so much better in the flesh than the photos. So, that was, when we recorded episode 20, what was so nice was being over in Nashville in person and actually able to, meet with the Nashville Watch Club and the watch fam over there and actually show them some of the watches and show you guys the watches. So as good as it is over Skype, it's not quite the same, is it?
No,
it's not quite the same.
Not
Also, we're not ridiculously full from eating everything on the Hattie B's menu right now, which is nice.
What I would give for a Hattie B's right now,
so would we.
Man, that banana pudding sounds so good right now. I might have to go pick it up to go or something.
Maybe. We should have done something like that.
Can you FedEx some to me?
I'm not gonna promise how well it keeps, but I will totally make an attempt for sure.
So Nick, the last time that you were on the show, you were releasing the Brunswick in blue.
Yes. I think I launched it about a week or 2 weeks after I'd sat down with you both.
That's right. That's right. We had a sneak peek. I forgot.
Yes. So that was the sort of the big launch in November 2019, and it was a great launch actually, because it really was it was showing the new direction of Fears, and it was when I say the new direction, what is so lovely with that watch is it's loosely linked to our heritage, but actually most of the design came just from my head. It was nice to create something where I was like, actually, this is what I really want to create, and people like it without having to say, oh, well, it's because it's linked to this. Now, interestingly, the Brunswick White is still the #1 bestseller. And I think that's because it's a classic white lacquer dial, glued hands, steel case. You can't fault it for that. It's got such a nice sort of, composition. But the blue is such a different watch. They look so different. And that was a great launch. And it was lovely to see the positive reaction it had received.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when you did launch it on social media and Instagram, that watch really took well to a lot of people. And for people that weren't really, not to say fans of the traditional Fears style, but maybe they wanted something a little bit more modern from you guys. You guys just really hit the nail on the head with that one. It was really amazing. Yeah.
And I think that's the thing. It's showing, I've always tried to explain to people, or tried to sort of convey, that Fears isn't a heritage watch company. It's a watch company which happens to have an extensive heritage. I've always rather than trading off the heritage, I'd rather, if you didn't have that, you just looked at the watch, you like it. For me, that's really important, because, vintage watches are fantastic. But, at the end of the day, if you want a vintage Fears, go on eBay or go to a dealer and buy one. What I want to do is create what I believe the business would be creating today if it hadn't closed for those 40 years. And it's a slightly more difficult thing to do, because you've got to take into account, taste preferences, sizes of cases and things like that. But actually, I'm really pleased that we are a modern watch company. We kind of kept the best of modern and the best of the tradition. We're not sort of reliant or harking back to it too much.
Yeah, I'd absolutely agree with that, for sure.
Yeah, and you had recently, I think right as we recorded, you had really kind of started up the Fears archive. And I see that a lot lately, like online and everything else. Like, it seems like you're able to get so much access to a lot of these vintage pieces now, which has to be so cool. I think we've messaged about this several times, and I've said how cool it must be to see watches that like your family worked on and your family created, and to be able to hold those and check those out.
It is special, because, quite often you'll have maybe photographs of your family members, or maybe, if you're lucky, a journal or a diary or something. But to hold something and be like, this was created by the company, this was created by, my ancestors. And I mean, the oldest watch we've got in the archive was actually made by Edwin Fear himself, and the movement is signed by him. And I mean, that is incredible, to hold a pocket watch from the 1860s that still works, still winds up and runs, and yet you can see his signature on the back. It's just, that for me is really special, but it's also a sort of reminder of, these watches, they made them there and they still work today. It reminds me that actually I can't just be thinking about what do I want to do this year or within the next 5 years. I need to be thinking about, like, in 50 years time, when it's my turn to sort of hang up my hat and pass on to the 5th managing director. And you begin to think, well, that seems a crazy idea. Like, how on earth can you foresee that far into the future? And especially with everything that's going on at the moment. And I mean, I don't want to sort of dwell too much, but this is a very interesting time. And the reason I find it particularly interesting is, very rarely does any business, large or small, have a moment where basically everything stops, everything pauses, all at the same time. It's almost like Christmas, where all businesses close. And this has happened. And, I talk to not only a lot of other watch brands, big and small, but also with other businesses, usually based in the UK, who make all kinds of accessories or tailoring and that sort of thing. And what we all find quite fascinating at the moment is we've all been given a chance, an opportunity to stop and look at our business and go, right, we've now been running this 4 or 5 years. Is this what we hoped it would be at this point? Because you write a business plan and the moment the ink's dried, it's out of date. And quite often I've never had an opportunity like now to get round to my to-do list of important things. So not urgent, but the important things, because everything is, I always say running a business is, like being a firefighter. You're always putting out some fire, something's got, misplaced by DHL. We've got to sort that out, or, there's a production delay or something. Whereas at the moment, I'm working on things like a new website, making sure that all the branding is consistent, working with a chap who handles social media to make sure we've got the right tone of voice, the right post, the right, I've never had this sort of opportunity to actually work on the business and make sure everything is where I want it to be. And in the first few weeks when the UK went into lockdown, and a few weeks before then was when sales really began to slow down. And at first it's scary, very scary, because it's a business. It needs money to come in, especially when you're making watches like we do. Every invoice is huge. Everything is expensive. And so, that was very scary, but it also reminds you to stop and think, right, am I making what I want Fears to be making? Is it creating the objects, the things that I was hoping it would do at this point? And I kind of stopped and thought, actually, yeah, you know what? I'm really proud. Like, we make beautiful handmade, hand-finished watches. And yeah, I'm really proud of what we've done. And, it's at that point where you go, right, we've decided what we're doing for the next 50, 100 years. We're going to continue to make beautiful objects. And it was quite funny when talking to someone who runs a fashion brand, and they were saying how awful it is at the moment because everyone's at home, so no one is buying fashion. And they said, oh, you must be finding the same. And I said, yes. However, the great thing with a watch, you can wear it when you're at home wearing no clothes at all. At the end of the day, if a watch is so personal, you can enjoy a watch. And actually, at the moment I'm wearing the prototype of the first of the 2020 Midas watches, so our gold watch. And I was wearing it a few days ago, at the end of a long day, and I was sort of, in my pajamas, in a dressing gown, just sort of slouched on the sofa. So I'm not dressed up. I'm just really relaxed. But I realized I was still wearing this gold watch, and you think it doesn't matter because I'm enjoying it. I'm getting so much pleasure from wearing it. It doesn't matter whether it goes with my outfit or, because who cares? At the end of the day, I like it. I like hearing it ticking away. And I think those things, without sounding sort of too much like an old romantic, actually it reminds you what is the joy and pleasure I get out of what I do. And it is making beautiful things that people enjoy wearing. And, they are just small miniature mechanical sculptures that you happen to wear on the wrist. And actually it goes back to the basics, rather than the last few years have felt like everyone's been on a carousel, with the horses going around and around, and everything's been getting quicker and quicker and quicker, and more people have been getting on, and there's been more and more horses produced every year. Every brand is launching so many more models or model families or dial variants, and it's sort of hitting a fever pitch, and then everything is slowed down. And actually, when you talk to even the big brands, and they're going, yeah, you know what? Actually, we rather like the fact that we don't have to be launching 20 new models. We can launch half of that, because no one is going to say, oh, look at them. They're failing. They've only done half the thing. Everyone's expectations have kind of come back down to earth. And as someone who makes something, that's really nice, because you can't think of it like an artist. You can't, as an artist, just create more and more work. Like, you have to be inspired. And I've always said I can't work on more than one new watch at a time, because I just don't have the capacity or the creative brain space to be trying to create lots of different things. Whereas you focus on one, make it perfect, and then you work on the next one and make that perfect. So yeah, that's a very long answer to a short question of how are things.
No, I love that answer. I really enjoy your perspective on it. It's a good point that this is the time that, you know, instead of sitting around woe is me, you can really reflect on where you are in your business. And I mean, and we've known this from the beginning since we first met you, is your passion for fears and your passion for the brand and watchmaking in general. And I think it just kind of solidifies that point that, you know, you're taking this time to really focus on, is it what you want it to be? Is it what you expect it to be? And, you know, is this something that will last for another 50, 75 years? And I think it's phenomenal.
It's it also doesn't hurt at the moment that, you know, while everyone's in lockdown, where everything's a bit quieter, our industry has gone through some of the biggest changes in the last few weeks. I mean,
oh, for sure.
I was just blown away with going the joint press release from Rolex, Patek, Chopard, and Chanel, and I was reading it and I was thinking, my goodness, I think this is probably needs to be framed. I think this is the bitchiest you'll ever see a Swiss man be. Like all the little backhanded, like, you know, slapping bars or going, oh, we just, you know, we don't like this. And I was laughing away. I was thinking, I never thought in my, you know, 10 plus years in this industry, I would ever see, you know, the CEO of Rolex actually come out and say something and actually criticize something. And then, you know, the CEO of Patek literally a few lines later doing the same thing. And then LVMH a few days later saying, effectively, we don't want to be part of this show because it could damage our brand, our image. You're thinking, whoa, suddenly everyone is cooped up in their home and going, right, we need to let off our anger and steam somewhere.
And poor Baselworld took the grunt of that.
Exactly.
I loved their response. And like basically the subject was, we're shocked. As though like they were completely blindsided, bless their hearts. And then they got a little salty in all of the press release too.
But you could see them sort of clutching their pearls, being like, oh my goodness, we never thought this would happen. And I mean, it was, the thing is, you know, I was debating actually this year about exhibiting. Obviously, I wasn't going to be in Hall 1 right next to Rolex, but, you know, having something in one of the upstairs floors in the first hall. And you just can't negotiate with them. You know, it was painful. And I'm all for tradition. And that's not just because I run a watch brand with heritage. It's because I think it's charming that certain things are done certain ways. You know, as and when, hopefully this year, I next come to Nashville, we're continuing our new tradition of going for lunch at Hattie B's, right? You know,
we're going out on Broadway afterwards.
And we're going out on, I will not have an early flight booked for the next morning. But,
no, please don't. Definitely don't.
But, you know, I like creating traditions. I like respecting old traditions. I think there's something, you know, charming about it, and I think it's important. However, not when a tradition is at the detriment of either it hurts someone or it affects good business. And, you know, actually that we see that a lot in the Swiss watch industry. You know, they, at the moment, everyone is sort of, you know, they've discovered that you can do things by, you know, telephone and email. Because literally to make a single decision, everyone would jump on the train or flight and go to one meeting. Everyone would go to the same location to spend basically a 1 hour meeting to make a simple decision and then go back away. And that's a day's business. And suddenly they're going, we can just do this Zoom thing. And suddenly we've done that. And now we can spend the rest of the day doing other things. You know, it's as charming as that is in 2020, that's not a practical way of working. And actually, Jean-Claude Biver made a very good comment in his conversation with Wei Ko. Was he said that, you know, everything that's been going on with Basel is showing that it's 20th century businessmen failing to work in the 21st century. And they haven't realized that it's no longer the 20th century. And I thought actually, you know, Jean-Claude Biver is a great character anyway, but I thought actually that was a very succinct way of saying that they've been protected by, you know, high profit margins and, you know, selling lots of watches in China to keep doing business inefficiently and however tradition has dictated it. And this is all shaking it up. And I think, you know, the moment the release came out about Rolex, you know, immediately my phone was buzzing and on the phone to other watch brands, and everyone was just saying, you know, we weren't shocked, but we were maybe surprised. You know, we knew this day would come at some point, but we thought it would be so dragged out and would take years before, you know, one brand would go and then another. And suddenly going, wow, this has just all happened. Everything has changed. And I'm sorry for, you know, the possible inevitable of Basel World closing. I'm sorry for the job losses that will have. I'm not sorry for the way that the city would just laugh at you while it took even more money off you. That is inexcusable. That's bad business. But yeah, I mean, what an exciting time. And of course, this weekend, we've got the first online Watches and Wonder.
I know. Very exciting.
I think it's very interesting because I'm a little bit more surprised by this because you see so much of the Swiss watch industry is so, like you said, they're so 20th century in the way that they do things. They don't really embrace social media very well. So the fact that they were doing an online showcasing, I was shocked. Breitling did it earlier this week, and I thought that it went very well for Breitling. You know, that's what the talk has been all week long.
Yeah.
And so once Watches and Wonder announced this, I mean, I think it's phenomenal, and I'm very excited to see kind of what comes out because I think that it's easy. It's easy for brands to say, okay, well, 2020 is done. Like, we're just not even going to worry about 2020. Let's just focus all of our efforts into 2021. But, you know, for consumers and just for people in general, I think it kind of just makes things feel like they could go back to normal at some point. The fact that, you know, we're able to see new watch releases and things like that. So, you know, they may not be the best selling watch releases for a while because of the economy and whatnot, but it's nice to just kind of see that there's like a light at the end of the tunnel.
Yeah.
But I know for you were supposed to be in Switzerland this weekend.
Yeah, yes. I mean, this coming weekend, I was meant to be in Switzerland going to Watches and Wonder. And then next week I was going to come back to the UK and then head back out and go to Basel World. And I was going to spend a few days there in Basel and, you know, and do the show and catch up with people. And of course, none of that's happening. And actually, I was saying this to someone the other day, actually, how for me, what I used to always love about January was the year started with SIHH, you know, what Watches and Wonder has become or was formerly. And what I always enjoyed was basically you'd have 1 or 2 days where loads of releases would come out. And I could try and persuade myself that it was legitimate business to spend the day sat in my office with a big pot of tea, just going through all the releases. I literally would spend 2 days just sat on one of my comfy chairs in my office, just with an iPad going through every release and working out what I liked, what I didn't like. And that was so much fun because then I would know a couple of days later, I would be on a flight out to Switzerland, going to the show. And I would always have a little notebook of like who I wanted to see first. And, you know, I'd make a beeline for those stands, see it, maybe try it on. And then, you know, after that, grab a coffee and then go and look at other watches. And I do the same for Basel, you know, be like, right, I've got to go and see this, got to see that. And I've got these notebooks going back for years because I would see things and then make a comment on like, did it live up to what I expected? Or, you know, and I was really sad when that didn't happen. Now we had LVMH's Watch Week and that was really exciting because that was like a miniature sort of around the SIHH time. And I think this year, you know, I'm really excited that Saturday and Sunday, you'll probably find me in my garden with my iPad and a case of beers, enjoying the sunshine and just going through all the releases. That is going to be amazing. What's sad is not to then be jumping on a flight, you know, on Monday and going out to actually see them. But you're totally right. This gives you a sense of there will be an end to all this. There will be, you know, and sadly there'll be a lot of loss by the time we get out of this. But you know, there will still be a watch industry. There will still be watches, and it's still exciting. You know, I was saying earlier, I think there will be fewer watches, that we won't see as many. But, for me, I'm so excited to see my favorite brands like Laurent Ferrier and Vacheron and people like that and see what they're bringing out. I haven't seen anything, but I've been told by a few people certain key things to look out for with some brands. And I'm just really excited. This is me going back to being that, that 12, 13-year-old when he used to get the one watch magazine that you could buy at the local newsagents, flicking through and seeing the new watches. I mean, it's so exciting, isn't it? It's just so wonderful.
I agree. Also, so how is Fears doing? What is Fears doing during all of this that's going on right now?
Well, to start with releases, we had quite a strong lineup of what we were going to launch this year. And pretty much immediately in March, we said, right, let's cut that to zero. Let's say we don't launch anything. And what I've done subsequently is worked out that actually there are a couple of things we might be able to launch sort of maybe later in the summer, the autumn time. But again, we'll just have to see. I was chatting earlier today with a dial manufacturer in Germany, and, they were like, we're still sort of working, but actually it's really tough because, we can't have that many people in the workshops and, it's not easy. And so I think it's that thing where if we launch something this year, that would be great. That would be fantastic. But I've completely readjusted my expectations of what as a small brand we can do. Things that were already already nearly finished, we can still do those, but starting new projects, it's more tentative. Now give me a month, that could be all different. It could be going, okay, Germany's open again, Switzerland's open again, we can start going and having meetings and making stuff happen. And it's actually been quite nice to stop and look at what we already have. I look at the free watches we currently have, the free Brunswicks, and I've been commissioning a lot more photography of those. We've got a new website launching in a couple of weeks, which is beautiful. It's so much nicer. I like the existing website, but this new one will be stunning, and the photographies for that. And it's been quite nice to just refocus on what we already have and be proud of it and go, right, well, let's sort of maximize it and sort of go, it's not a case. We've never built watches to be like seasonal, it's here for this year and that's it. We've always done it for, we make a watch and it will be in the brochure for years to come. This November, the Brunswick White is 3 years old. And that's, for me, a proud achievement. But yeah, I mean, I won't lie, sales in February began to decrease. And for the first few weeks, I thought it was just a blip. I thought it was, by the end of week 2, I began to worry it was something I was doing wrong, and by week 3, week 4, it's when you start talking to other brands and everyone begins to slowly admit that we're all in the same boat and everyone's experiencing the same. And then you realize it's a trend. Then you realize it's not just you. And it's not comforting, but it's reassuring that it isn't just what you've done. And then, lockdown starts and then everyone is stopped. For the first few weeks, everyone just stopped buying anything. That has changed. People are beginning to buy things. I think people feel a bit more confident. But I also, as I'm sure you saw, I did a campaign where I basically said to people, don't buy a Fears.
Yeah.
And, that came from a place of saying, actually, we need to stop and acknowledge everything that's going on and go, actually, it's not just watches, that every small business is struggling. So you need to look around you and work out who you can help, who you can support. And I was blown away by that, the response to the campaign. It was lovely to see how positive it was.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I think I heard you speak about this before, but that was at the time that literally every company you've ever given your email address to ever was sending how they're dealing with, COVID-19, and it was the same message with a different letterhead, basically. And then but basically saying, oh, we're still open, please shop with us still, or whatever. And then to get on Instagram and see, your photography on your Instagram is amazing anyways.
Thank
but
you.
then to see this post that says don't buy at Fears, and then to really read into the post. And I mean, I sent it to Kat immediately. I think I messaged you immediately afterwards.
Yeah.
And it was so touching. I'd imagine had to be horrifying as a small business owner to say, hey, don't shop with me. Like consider doing other things if you're going to spend this money. But I mean, honestly, and Kat and I said this, like for us, it made us want to support your business even more. You know, I think a lot of people know that we're buying watches for our 1-year anniversary, and we've decided to purchase Fears watches, which we're very excited about. But yeah, it made us want to support you even more at that point, because it was so different than the message that was going out. And you could tell that it was really sincere and really from a heartfelt place.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know, that what you were saying about the emails from every company under the sun. And I think, you know, now we're coming to a period where people are adjusting and going, actually, you know, people have a certain sense of not confidence, but more reassurance, you know, what job they might have at the end of this, and, you know, their own position. And, you know, I was talking to a watch brand earlier today, and they were saying, you know, we're beginning to think maybe in a month or 2 months, we might be able to launch something, you know, quietly, softly, but actually, you know, there is now more reception to it. And I think that's right. But I think it was in those weeks, I was just getting so angry by all those emails. And, you know, I was thinking, why are people not realizing what's going on around them? You know, in the UK, everyone jokes about our pub culture, but actually the pub is a very important place. Like everyone has a local, and often your local isn't actually the closest pub to your house or, you know, office. It's the one that you go to, you like it, you know, and the staff
it's
knows.
your spot.
And, you know, my husband and I went to our local in Canterbury on the night where they announced sort of at 7:00, they said from midnight, pubs close, you know, restaurants close. So we made a point of going out for dinner and social distancing, but like we wanted to support our favorite independent restaurant and support our favorite independent pub. And both of them were just so quiet. They were just absolutely dead. And they, you know, you're talking to the owners. The owners are there, you know, serving you, and they're just, you could see in their eyes they were trying to be brave, but like this is their thing. This is their thing that they love to do. They're not doing this to earn some money. They're doing it because they really care about offering, you know, great beers or great food. And you're just thinking, yeah, I relate to that. That is tough. And, you know, I've been very lucky in that I've always run Fears quite lean. You know, we don't have lots of sort of excess. And, you know, and I think that shows, you know, we don't do massive splashy adverts. We don't, you know, have ambassadors. We don't do all that sort of stuff. You know, and that meant that we were lucky to go into this with not huge, but modest cash reserves, which does help. But also on day one, realized very quickly that, you know, I need to sit down with the accountant and go through the numbers and go, right, you know, I am not going to let Fears fail. You know, at the end of the day, we've been going 4 years. Next year is not only will be 5 years since I restarted Fears, it's also the 175th anniversary of the company starting. I am not failing. You know, this has to continue.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But then also, you know, in those 4 years, we don't have an extensive team, but there is now a Fears team, a team whose rent is dependent on, you know, the business paying them. And that's scary. That was always the scary thing. You know, the moment you take on the first employee, you're like, oh, this is really scary because, you know, I'm now responsible for them. And this is the moment where you realize very quickly you are responsible for them. And the horror stories coming out immediately from different companies who before in the UK, the government basically backed jobs and offered to pay people. The number of even quite big brands you'd think were really secure, they just let everyone go and basically said, no pay. That's it. As of today, you're not paid. And you think these people have skills. You know, these people have, you know, careers. They've dedicated and put in countless hours to work for these companies, and they're just, you know, chucked aside. And it was with the accountant, and my accountant, you know, was going through it, and she was like, well, look, you know, your number one cost is payroll. Like, you know, what do you do with that? And I was like, no, like payroll stays what it is. I decided to take 100% pay cut immediately, because I was like, well, I wasn't paying myself a huge amount, but I'm just another person, and I can take that to zero. And then you speak to the landlord for the office and the showroom and stuff, and just saying, look, I'm still going to pay you, but like, can we basically, can we make sure that I've got enough cash to assume that sales don't start flowing in. And actually, you were, I think, were you both on the Red Bar video the other evening?
Yeah, I was on there. I don't think Kat was.
Right. So yeah, some people were asking about the like one of the coping things, and so because I took 100% pay cut, I've still got a mortgage and a home to pay for, and utilities and food, and the cost everyone has.
Right.
And I was like, okay, well, what do I do? So I'm now juggling, still running Fears full time, but I now also have taken on 5 shifts a week at our local supermarket, our local Asda, part of the Walmart family. As I get reminded, I'm now part of the Walmart family. And it's a weird world, but you also realize that actually every shift at 2 a.m. in the morning, every 6-hour shift is allowing the company to keep running, because I'm not taking a salary. And there's still work for the employees to be doing. The Fears team, my colleagues actually have stuff they need to be doing, because we don't want to just say, okay, well, look, this is tough, so we're going to not, we're not going to make any new watches, we're not going to design any new watches, we're going to stop doing social media. You're like, well, no, the business still needs to run in some form. And it's tough times. But as I said earlier, knowing that my ancestors have been through 2 previous unprecedented periods and the company survived, it kept going. It's sort of the thing that inspires me to go, come on, Nick, you can do this. Like, you need to find out how to do this.
Yeah, I mean, I find that it was incredibly humbling to know that you took a major pay cut to pay your employees and to keep them going during this time. It's an incredibly difficult decision, I can imagine, coming from your standpoint. But yeah, I mean, it gives me all the more respect for your brand, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
I think both of us.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's not even the fact that you had to take another job, but I mean, obviously that job pays much differently. But then, like, you put your health at risk, like everybody else who, all of the mandatory workers, and whether you're a doctor, you work at a grocery store, you work in public works, whatever you do, like you're putting your health at risk to keep the rest of us going. Grocery stores, associates are needed, and and to know that, like, you kind of put your safety second so that you can first of all be able to pay your mortgage and and provide for your family, but so that you can not take an income from your own business that your name is on and provide for everybody else's families. Like, it's absolutely phenomenal, and like, all the respect to you for what you're doing right now.
Well, thank you. I mean, it's unprecedented times call for unprecedented measures, and actually that's a really good point you made, because when it comes to working, I've never worked in a supermarket before. I used to work in retail years ago, but that was in a jeweler's selling watches, or then I worked for Ralph Lauren for a bit, and I always enjoyed it. But it's so different from working in a supermarket. And actually, when you work in a supermarket, at heart, I'm an economics geek as well as a watch geek, and I just find it fascinating seeing how the food supply chain works. Food goes into one depot, and then it travels from a depot to the store, and then it gets distributed out, and everything gets done before the store opens. It's just fascinating to see. But you also see at the moment how online orders, home delivery has skyrocketed, and actually that's fantastic, because that's the job I'm doing, is I'm picking people's shopping. I tell you what, it's a real insight into the diet of the average British household.
All I could say is, like, I do, the Walmart pickup here, and, usually it's some like 16-year-old kid picking out my produce. I so wish that I had someone like you. Like, I bet that you are picking the best stuff that's on the shelf. So I'm sure those customers are very highly satisfied when they get their shopping bags.
Well, it's always the substitution. So I don't know if it's the same in the United States, but so if an item isn't available, you pick something alternative, right? And you walk around the shop with a little like handheld sort of barcode reader gun thing, and it will tell you what it suggests. And I'm always like, ignore that. I'm picking something different. Like, I'm going to pick something proper.
I love it.
Well, I mean, the funniest thing is we realized there were a few glitches. So, for example, if there's no garlic, it recommends an orange. And I'm like, oh yes, so you're making your pasta bolognese and you're putting in some garlic. No, we're going to put orange in instead.
Orange sounds phenomenal. Yeah. Let's get some orange zest in there.
But no, it is. It's a very satisfying job, and it is very. It's obviously very different, and it's quite tiring because in a 6-hour shift you walk nearly 10 miles.
Yeah,
and it is. Wow. I've never been as fit and toned in my life. Like, I'm definitely coming out of lockdown, much healthier than when I went in. But
well, that makes one of the people on this call then.
But no, it's then I get home, at 8 a.m, and I then literally take off, my uniform and get dressed, put on a watch that I'm quite happy to, wear, not being bashed around. And then start running a watch company until 5 p.m. when I go back to bed. So I'd never really understood. I understood what a beta watch was, but I never really got it. But now I have my beta watch, my watch that I wear to work, and it literally is getting destroyed. It's getting bashed into trolleys and shelves and things. But I quite like that because, as you know, I'm always one about the story of a watch. And this watch... Mm-hmm. It's gone from being the watch that I might wear on a Sunday when going to the pub to being like, whenever I look at it, in the future, it will always remind me of this period in my life.
Yeah.
Wow. Yeah.
This is part of the Fears heritage. There will be in the archive. I'll put my Walmart Asda name badge will go into the archive. That is part of this when we eventually come out of this. But it's strange and bizarre times. But I was going to ask you two a question.
Sure. Yeah.
So have you decided what's going to be your kind of post-lockdown watch? Is there something that you've obviously had more time to be kind of eyeing up things and thinking about things and also because there's been fewer releases, obviously that changes at the weekend. Have you found yourself gravitating more towards something being right? Actually, I want to make an effort to go and see that and try it on and maybe get it, or?
Yeah, I think I've definitely have been eyeing plenty of pieces, no doubt, since being home because I do have lots of time on my hands right now. Whether or not I'm going to buy it when this is over, I don't know. It's a tough question. I think, I'm certainly not wanting to go and spend thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars on a watch right now, but I wouldn't be lying if I said that there wasn't a couple things that I'd have my eyes on right now either. So I don't know. It's really tough. What about you? I know you're like no.
No.
You're a big no.
Well, I mean, because it's not like there's a very real chance that I'm going back to work here in a couple weeks, and I've been paid. I'm very fortunate for the company I work for, that I've been paid this whole time. But then there's also like my play money was like commissions and bonus, so that's like my play watch money, and I haven't had. Like very similarly to you, like you notice a big drop down, in February when all of this was starting to get a little bit more real, and then March we had the tornado on the 3rd and then the 5th was, our first case of COVID here. So, it's going to be, and even once I go back to work, it'll be a few more months before people, are spending the way that they used to. So, for me, that was my play around money for watches and stuff. So I don't think, realistically, the only watch I'm definitively buying this year is going to be the Fears for our anniversary. I may pick up another watch because I've also, like, we've talked about this on the podcast, is, you know, I've gotten to where I have so many watches, and, you know, and we have, and not to sound ridiculous because they're not all like, you know, expensive, and I love all of my watches, but like, I feel terrible that sometimes they just sit there in a box.
Yeah.
Because I'm a very practical person. So just seeing something sit in a box and not get worn, like it kind of breaks my heart a little bit. And we're so fortunate that we get in all of these watches for review, and we genuinely wear the watches for review. Like we give them a chance. We don't just look at them and say, oh yeah, we could write up or talk about that. Like we do wear them. So then that keeps my watches sitting around even more.
Yeah. That has been a challenge.
It is. So again, it's a very first world problem. And I hope it doesn't sound as pretentious as what I think it sounds in my head.
I think that is a problem that a lot of collectors and enthusiasts will be having, is like, actually you're at home, you're looking at your watches in the box and going, do I want all of these? Or, you know, is this what, you know, I'm looking at my business going, is it where I hoped it would be in 4 years time, you know, from the start? You know, you can also be looking at your watch collection and going, are these the watches I actually want to be having? Because you can get caught up in buying stuff because, you know, everyone's going, oh, we've all got to own X or Y, and, you know, and I'm not saying I know you're very discerning when it comes to what you choose to have for in your watch collection.
Oh no, there was a hot minute that I wasn't very discerning, which is why I'm being very discerning now. I'm being very careful now.
Yeah.
So, I had a summer that I bought a few too many watches.
All the watches.
No, I mean, like Catlin, I don't always get a chance to wear a lot of my pieces. So my mindset is, if I get something that, you know, maybe is over, maybe say $1,000, it could possibly mean that something else needs to go, you know, a one in, one out policy, because I really don't want to grow my collection too much. So particularly right now, I have my eyes on a two-tone Datejust birth year. Yeah. With a really special dial. So I don't know. It's
Which
a struggle.
Of course she wanted to wait until next year for her birthday, but because it's so rare, she's like put out the feelers, and now there's one magically appeared
of course
9 months early. So
what's a girl to do? I don't know, y'all.
But yeah, it's a little bit more difficult. I'm trying to be very cautious about spending any money for a while anyway. Yeah. So I think the Doxa is really calling my name lately. It's an amazing watch. I didn't think that I would love it that much, the sub 300. But yeah, if I pick up something else, it would probably be that this year.
They're beautiful. I remember seeing one up in Glasgow when I was there last year or year before. And I'd seen Doxas, but I'd never handled one. I'd seen them online. And when you actually handle them, the quality is fantastic, and the detail and, you know, the finishing, you know, when you're suddenly like, this is special, this is different, that is beautiful. What color dial?
I think I'm going with the orange.
Yeah, it has to be the orange, doesn't it?
I think so. You know, I was torn because I really like the turquoise, but I like it in their stock photos. But every time I see a photo of it, you know, on Instagram or whatever, just a real life photo, the blue just looks very different. And I'm very particular about blue. And so I don't know if you ever met Alan, the watch dude too, when you were in Scotland.
It was his watch I saw. Yeah.
Oh, very cool. So I had him, because he works at James Porter and Sons and they carry Doxa. I had him like take the watch like in natural light and send me a video of it. And I've decided that that's not my shade of blue. So, but the orange is, it's so traditional Doxa and traditional diver. I feel like that's the way you have to go.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's interesting, Kat, you mentioned a two-tone Datejust. I have to say so I've been playing a bit with the guys over at Clockbait. We're trying to get a hashtag started, which is make gold great again. Because for some reason, Ant and I, for quite a while, we've always been messaging each other, just saying how much we love gold, you know, and gold watches, and how actually, you know, I'm a little bit older than him, I think, but we're basically of the same sort of generation we're not older, so we're not necessarily people who would always gravitate towards gold watches. Gold watches always, you know, it's something for much older people, or, you know, and suddenly we're looking at it going, these are cool. And he's got a two-tone turnograph. And the other day he posted a photo. He's taken it off the beautiful leather strap he had it on and put it on a two-tone Jubilee bracelet. And it looks amazing. Like, it's just, it's so 1980s, but so perfect. And actually, I remember last October when I was visiting you both, and I think is it Josh in the Watch Club? He's got a two-tone. And again, we were talking about it, going like, you know, it's something about it, the color of the gold and with the steel. It's just, I think that it's a classic. I mean, it's an absolute classic.
For sure. You know, there's something to me about the, 80s, 90s two-tones where they're much more subtle and not in your face, whereas I think a lot of the more modern pieces, especially from Rolex, it's too much. It's too blingy. Gold, but yeah, they did it just right back then, and I just adore. Oh, I need a little gold in my life. I'll start using that hashtag if I get it.
Can I ask what
well, now we have to have a gold watch because we have to support you guys in your new hashtag.
Yeah,
exactly. I've never had anything trending, so I'm trying to do that. May I ask what the dial is, or is that going to be a surprise if you go for it?
No, it's almost like a very light champagne-y silver dial with the gold sticks, the gold indices. And then the lume dots around that, so they're not the Roman numerals. There's two that are very similar, but it's the lume dots around each hour marker. But I adore it.
Pale champagne was the color.
Yes.
So you have champagne, which is obviously the gold, and then for only a few years, Rolex did a version called pale champagne. It's also sometimes called pink champagne, but it's because it's a pale gold, but it can in some lights have flecks of pink in it,
okay.
Absolutely.
It's beautiful.
I really liked it because I think, yes, the champagne gold is stunning, and you've got the gold bezel, but you've also got gold hands and gold battens. Everything is gold. It can occasionally be a little difficult to read, whereas that color, the pale champagne, you've got the gold. It's not a silver, it's definitely a gold, but it's much better contrast for reading. Because of course a gold Datejust is being bought purely for the practical reason of reading the time.
100%. Totally.
But no, I know the exact one you're talking about. My mother actually had a two-tone Datejust, ladies Datejust, and hers had the pale champagne dial, and it was beautiful. It was a really nice color.
Yeah. Oh, just talking about it.
Ready to start buying watches again.
So as we sort of conclude our episode here today, we actually have a few fun questions for you. Ooh. And this is something that we actually started in our last interview?
Yeah, with VJ.
With VJ from the CEO of Oris. Just some like fire round quick questions. Answer as fast as you can. But you can obviously take a minute to think about it if you need to. But we'll just go back and forth.
Yeah, just non-watch related.
Yeah, just fun stuff.
Get to know you better.
Cool. All right. Do you want to start or want me to start?
You can start.
Okay.
I just alternated them the same way we did last time.
Perfect. All right. So what is your favorite emoji?
Favorite emoji has to be the one with the hearts as the eyes.
Aww.
That's probably mine too.
I think that's mine.
I use that. I use it way too much. And I use it on my personal Instagram loads. And often I'm like, oh, wait, no, I've got to be like professional owner of a watch company. And there I am like, oh, look at this gold watch. And I've got like heart emoji. No, I use that a lot.
Nobody ever looks at our Instagram and thinks we're supposed to be professional. I hope that. Okay, beach or the mountains?
Beach.
Okay.
Yeah, beach. I mean, I like both, but I burn very easily in the sun. But I do love being under a parasol on the beach is... just watching the water crashing. It's
so calming.
Perfect. Yeah. And the mountains are lovely, but I don't know. In the mountains, you need more gear, whereas on the beach, you need a lot less,
A cooler full of alcohol. That's all you need.
Yeah. All right. So if you could have any superpower, what would it be?
Superpower.
These are the tough questions.
Oh yeah, no, this is tough. I was never fun as a kid. I never wished I was a superhero. I would say, no, this is really tough. Okay, let me just think. Okay, I think it would be good to see in the dark.
Yeah.
Ooh.
I know that's not that super. I mean, I could just eat more carrots, but like, yeah. Yeah, that's a pretty lame superpower. Okay, well, yeah.
It's fine.
That's actually, no.
I think it's very practical.
Yeah.
I stub my toe a lot. So. What did you want to be when you grew up?
Train driver. So, yeah, or train engineer. Yeah, I wanted to drive locomotives, drive trains. And actually, when I was applying to become a watchmaker, the other jobs I was about to apply for were to become a train driver. So
I think I remember you saying that. Yeah.
That is so cool. That's such a dream too. To be like an engineer, a train engineer. It's not really like, it's not a big, I feel like it's not a big thing here.
I don't think it's a big thing here.
But y'all have like an amazing train, tram system and like just the best stuff. Like we just don't have a lot here. If you go up to like the mountains in Colorado, there's some really cool like steam trains, but around this area, there's just like nothing but just like the normal,
the interstate.
Yeah.
That's all we got.
We have the semis.
Yeah.
All right. So Beatles or Stones?
Beatles.
Pizza or burgers?
Pizza. Yeah, I don't actually like burgers. Yeah.
What?
Yeah, I know. It's awful. Whereas pizza, yeah. And actually with pizza, I only eat one pizza, which is so dull. It's just a standard margarita. But
no, that's a good. There's nothing dull about that.
A margarita done well, like a proper nice, freshly made one on a thin Italian base, perfect.
I feel like that's the adult version of pizza.
Yeah.
Like
that's what grown-ups are supposed to eat.
Or if I'm going for a proper dirty pizza, then it would have to be Hawaiian, We've got to get fruit and meat on the same pizza. Crazy.
You're Hawaiian? No way.
Oof. You lost me there. All right. If you can be reincarnated as any animal, which one would it be?
Peacock.
I like that answer.
Yeah.
What is your secret talent?
Secret talent. Okay, this is a really, really lame secret talent, but I do think this is something I'm actually pretty good at, and I know that's not very humble of me. My secret talent is being able to like pack things into a space. So like packing a car or packing a supermarket trolley or, or a suitcase. I've always been very good at sort of doing a 3D tessellation and going, oh, it will all fit. You just need to put this here or this here.
Yeah.
So I remember as a kid.
That's a very important skill.
That's
a great life skill.
I remember feeling so proud as a kid because my parents would go, "Oh, you're really, really good at this. So why don't you pack the car before like going on holiday?" And I was like, "Oh yes, mummy and daddy, I will pack the car."
Your parents were just using you.
Yeah, basically. Yeah, it took me a long time. I think I was in my 20s when I realised that I was actually being taken for a fool. But no, I did that. That is my secret skill.
Like it. All right. Favorite snack?
I don't know if you have them in the States, but we have them here. They're called giant strawberries. They're like a sweetie, a gelatine sweetie, which is shaped like a strawberry, and it's made by Haribo.
I've seen those. Yeah.
Yeah, I love those. Like if you opened a packet, I could just eat all of them, like without even thinking about it.
Is it hard? Is it a hard candy?
No, it's soft, so you can sort of bite and chew it. Yeah, it's like a gummy. Okay. Yeah.
You see them at like, I don't think they really sell them in stores, but like in Opry Mills, there's that like candy stand outside of Bass Pro Shops where they have like all the different types of gummies and they carry them there.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Okay. And then last question, where is the first place you're going after stay at home is lifted?
The first exciting place or
yeah, I mean, let's go exciting other than like work.
So realistically, I think it will probably be the continent. It will probably be going over to Germany. I tell you where I absolutely want to go, and I've never wanted to go before, but I keep showing Chris, my husband, all these like photos. I really want to go to Barbados. I just suddenly am like,
Can we just make this a group trip?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I would love to go there, but I think it will probably be the continent. I'm not too fussed about going up to London or like, going for, as much as I love the beach, I'd be just really happy just to go to a nice German city and sit out in some square with a local beer. That would be perfection for me. How about yourselves? Yeah. Actually, where do you want to go?
I would like to go to the beach. I was actually talking about this with my husband last night. We're celebrating our 5-year anniversary next weekend.
Oh, congratulations!
And we've had thoughts of like maybe let's take a little weekend road trip, to the beach. So if and things are supposed to be open by then. So I don't know. We'll see. What about you?
I think the next trip I'm actually like going to, it will be beach. Like our first summer vacation is to the beach.
Yeah.
In June. So yeah. I'm like all about that beach life.
Mm-hmm.
I actually was so my last visit to a beach was only just under 4 weeks ago.
Yeah.
Because
it was when you were here, right?
Yeah, I was in the States. I was meant to go on a big family holiday in March, and we got as far as Florida, and then the cruise part got cancelled, and so we flew all the way to Florida for basically 3 days and then flew back. But those 3 days we were on a beach in Fort Lauderdale, and it was all the spring breakers were there. And it was just mayhem.
The things that you saw.
It was an experience, and they were all from, I think everyone was from one college in, I think it was from Kentucky or somewhere. Like it was, but it was an experience. Spring breakers, and they were very much like the last days of Rome. Like they knew that lockdown was coming, and so it was mayhem. And talk about like lack of social distancing. On reflection, you're sort of thinking, well, so. She's now recovering very well, but my mother's had coronavirus, and we pretty much on like if it wasn't there, it was the airport. But you were on the beach, and there were just thousands of people But it was also, I love people watching, and I found it fascinating watching these teenagers being really awkward around each other. So you'd have one group with all the boys and one group with all the girls, and then occasionally one would go to the other group, and also just watching everyone just getting so sunburned. There I am with my polo shirt on under a parasol, being like, ooh, put some more factor 50 on. feeling much older than 33. But I tell you what, that was actually 30-degree heat, being on a beach. And then I came back to the UK, and it was like 10 degrees centigrade and raining, and get me back to that beach. Not with
you
spring
guys
breakers.
Really sell the UK very well to us, by the way.
Absolutely. It's absolutely beautiful here for about 1 week of the year.
Oh, we're gonna freeze.
I don't even think it's the freezing, it's the rain. So I don't even use an umbrella here, which is really terrible because I got caught out. I had to run supplies to my parents on Easter Sunday and had to go to 6 stores in the pouring rain. I looked just a wet dog that had been out all day. But yeah, I don't even I'm the least rain prepared person. I don't have boots. I don't have I have a rain jacket, but I never wear it. It's going to be interesting.
Well, there's been so many memes on Instagram in the UK, basically saying March, April in the UK, it's usually pouring rain and really miserable. March, April in the UK during lockdown, when we're not allowed outside, blazing sunshine. We've had the best weather we've had for years at this time of year. Right now,
it's all the global warming. Y'all aren't driving anymore, so now the sun's out.
It's so exciting though. We've got almost no planes flying anywhere, right? And so you'll be walking down the street or out in the garden, you'll look up and you suddenly will see a plane, a jet going over, and you're like, oh, it's exciting to see it. It's sort of the, you suddenly realize that, you haven't actually seen planes or heard planes for months, for weeks,
Yeah.
It's crazy, the world we live in. Well, it has been fun catching up with you.
Likewise.
Why don't you let everybody know where they can find Fears Watches?
So you can find Fears online at fearswatches.com. You can also find on social media, Facebook, Instagram, if you just search for Fears Watches. And if you are interested in seeing any of the behind the scenes of running a watch company during lockdown, then you could maybe look at my Instagram, which is Nicholas Bowman-Scargill. You'll also see I show quite a few little prototypes of things and sneak peeks of things that are coming. So if you want to see what Fears is producing in the next year, that's the best place.
Very cool.
Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. It's been fun catching up, and it's always fun talking to you.
Absolutely.
Likewise. It's lovely.
Yeah,
All
most
right.
definitely.
You want to take us out?
Yeah, so just make sure that you head over to our website, which is www.10and2.com. We'll have all of the notes for this episode and links to get to all of Nicholas's and Fear's content. Be sure to follow us over at Instagram and on Facebook at 10and2 Media. And I think that's about it.
That's it.
All right. Well, we'll talk to you guys soon. Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye.